Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back with the third panel, Smart Grid, Battery and Energy Storage Growth. I'm Christian Mikhailov, and in the next 1 hour we will discuss in this important session topics connected with smart grids and how Bulgaria can position on the map. So I would like to present to you the man who designs smart grids for the city of the future in Saudi Arabia, Alexander Rangelov, CEO of International Power Supply, or IPS. The man who is a senior advisor to the European Climate Foundation, Julian Popov. And we are expecting to join Rosen Daskalov, the man who makes supercars and puts his company on the Bulgarian BIM Stock Exchange market. Hello, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Hello, Christian. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hello. So, gentlemen, how should the state act so the high-tech companies in the field of smart grids and batteries feel supported? What are the expected steps?
Well, if I can say a couple of words, first, the state should know where not to interfere and what not to do. That's very important, because we're talking about fields that are very innovative and very entrepreneurial. So they should have the freedom and the space to develop. So that's what it's very important to define what not to do and how not to restrain them. But it is very important also the state to recognize where an entrepreneurship is, support that. The state is not in a position to decide what entrepreneurial innovation should create, but should try to find what is happening and support it and elevate it. I think that's the main thing that the state should do. And you're presenting many companies that are very successful, and the state should learn from these companies rather than the other way around. And that's very important, especially for countries like ours, which have a very long tradition of state control, of state administration, of bureaucracy, and so on. And the third thing, of course, is education, funding of education, funding of research and development. This is something that specifically Bulgaria can do a lot, because the level of funding, R&D funding in the country is very low.
Thank you, Mr. Popov. Mr. Rangelov, would you like to?
Yes, actually, I agree with Mr. Popov, and everything what he said is correct. And it's very important that the level of the R&D funding in Bulgaria and also in the countries that would like to introduce new technology should be high, and in Bulgaria is almost non-existing. But I would like also to add a few more points. If we speak about smart grids, if we from a technology point of view, so what the state can do is first to recognize the new technologies and also to support with easiness of the regulations. To have a smart grid, you need, in my point of view, to go on a residential level in almost. You need to reach to almost all the residential users within the electrical grid infrastructure, residential and also industrial. The residential part is very important because at the end it's also supporting the stability of the national grids. And what the state can do is to make easy regulations for every residential user to be able to implement, to deploy, to install, and to use renewable energy sources and also battery storage, because the renewable sources and the battery storage are the basic foundations of every smart grid. So first, this is practically the first level, and then we can speak about smart grids.
Thank you, Mr. Rangelov. Mr. Daskalov, can you hear us? I know that you had some issues with the connection. Okay, it looks like Mr. Daskalov is still has some issues with the connection. I hope he can join soon. Okay, so Mr. Popov, can we move away from the fossil fuel demand and how the new source of energy can help us? And of course, is Bulgaria prepared to face the European Green Deal? If not, how we can prepare better?
Well, we are moving away from fossil fuels in several ways. We're moving technologically, we're moving politically, and we're moving in a sense of business and reality and energy mix. The Bulgarian energy mix is increasing its renewable share. Unfortunately, very slowly and lagging behind other countries. Bulgaria had a spike in early 2010s on the back of high feed-in tariffs. But now, when renewable energy is clearly cheaper than fossil energy, we are somehow not able to catch up with the technological and the economic state of renewables. So we have to do more. Bulgaria has huge potential. As Alexander said, we have potential, and we have to do and develop the decentralized renewable energy and storage that will add to the overall generation, but also will help with the balancing of the grid and moving forward. But Bulgaria also has industrial size renewable potential. The so frequently discussed coal region, Maritsa East, has fantastic potential for large industrial solars in many gigawatts. And then Bulgaria has unutilized wind potential, and also we have to explore and develop our offshore wind potential. All that is possible. And in terms of facing the Green Deal, of course we can. The Green Deal is not about energy only, it's about many things, but it's mainly about innovation and about fast transformation of the industry, something that is, we've been waiting for that to happen. So it's a very good economic boost or push or kick for the Bulgarian economy, which I hope very much that Bulgaria will make the proper use of it.
Okay, when we talk about new sources of energy, and in this case we talk about energy decentralization, how far this promise is reachable soon? Most electricity networks, for example, across Europe are 40 plus years old, and are they going to be replaced as they are, or is there going to be an innovation in changing them? So in this case, where Bulgaria stands?
If I may take the word here, so to replace the whole electrical distribution network is not an easy task. Even if the financial resources are available, it's much more complex than that. But in our case, especially, it would cost significant and huge resource to replace it. So the solution for the next years is definitely the energy decentralization and the application and deployment of smart grids and decentralized power generation with storage units. It has a lot of benefits if we speak about decentralized power generation and storage. So One of the alternatives, if we want to integrate renewable sources and storage into the national grid, is to use centralized location with multi-megawatt power plants and storage. But this can also create some problems with concentrating so much power at single points in the electrical grid. If we, on the other hand side, consider the distributed power generation, where we can, as I said in the previous question, where we can reach to the single residential and industrial facilities, then it would bring much more benefits for the grid balancing and also the usage of the individual residential or industrial owners. But at the end, it's I think it's more about the political will, because the technology is there, the industry, and I assume that also the residential users, considering now the high electricity prices, are willing and ready to do so, or soon they will be willing and ready to do so. The technologies are there, so I think it's more about political will to enter into this national discussion.
Yeah, I very much agree with that, and I'm glad that Alexander is saying that. He is representing actually a very successful company that is working all over the world in this field. It's not sort of a wish thing; it's a reality, and it's a reality that is pushing and pushing and insisting to happen and to be politically embraced. Because if we look around Bulgaria, we can see now a surge of installations of solar energy for self-consumption among the industry. I mean, this is the companies are not waiting for the government to tell them what to do. The economic realities are such that they are doing it by themselves. And exactly these trends are very important to be recognized and facilitated by the governments, but also businesses to learn from each other and to sometimes, especially when we talk about older companies that are a little bit more conservative, to embrace this innovation. And when I say older companies, I also include here the companies that are on the black list, like the coal companies. I mean, coal companies are companies. So they can also innovate. They can also introduce innovations. So coal companies operate large spaces, large areas of land. They can transform this land and think, is there something that we can do as a company, or we are going to die and other companies are coming here? It is also a matter of competition, and incumbents should try to participate, otherwise they would be wiped off.
Mentioning the energy issue, can smart grids and energy management solutions help with the booming price of the electricity nowadays? With the electricity price?
Definitely, I think that they can help and contribute to bring the electricity prices on a better level and position it better. Especially if we consider nowadays the situation with the price of the renewable energy sources and also the storage media. So we are monitoring that the prices are constantly decreasing. Solar module and wind turbine prices are constantly decreasing, as well as the battery storage. And on top of that, new battery storage technologies are coming to the market for commercial use. So definitely introducing, implementing, and deploying those components into the electrical grid could bring benefits in terms of better pricing.
Alexander, as you're doing project in the Middle East, which is more forward-looking, Europe or the Middle East in terms of smart grids, and not only, of course?
I would say Middle East, definitely Middle East, because they are very forward-oriented, they are very technology-oriented, they have easy regulations, they act fast. Of course, we have to consider the political structure and situation there. So more or less, the countries, they are monarchies, so decisions are made much easier and faster. But this shouldn't be the excuse. I mean, those countries are really committed. They have their national transformation plans towards the green future for the next 5 to 20 years, and they are acting. This is the difference, because everyone, Europe and the Middle East and also other countries, they have their strategies, but the question is who is acting. So the countries in the Middle East, definitely, they don't lose time, they don't waste resources, they are acting. They support technology companies to introduce new technologies, to make trials, to demonstrate their features. And very important, as the first point that Mr. Popov said initially in the conversation, they are supporting technology companies and funding a lot for R&D activities. And this is something that we as a company also benefit from their resources, and they are really supporting new technologies and companies that are working for them.
And I think it is essential to, in our energy diplomacy, to strengthen our relationships, especially the countries in the Gulf. I mean, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and so on. I mean, they, as Alexander said, they have a big concentration of funds for R&D, but also they have very bold projects. I mean, like Masdar by Abu Dhabi. I mean, at the time, it was seen as kind of almost crazy, then as a failure. But actually, it was the first city that tried to be built on the base of solar energy. That first attempt didn't succeed, but this lack of success was a big gain, because the level of learning and understanding how such technology would work, or when it will not work, and how the relationship between new technologies and economic realities are interacting. I mean, that was amazing, amazing development. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Alexander probably is much more familiar with that case. But now Masdar is reviving as an international and global company. But also there are so many other fantastic projects which are, for many of us, like science fiction. So to live in science fiction that is happening somewhere is definitely very very useful. Of course, having said that, Europe is a center of massive innovation, and many of these developments in the Gulf benefit massively from know-how and research developments from European companies. So this interaction is very important, I think, for us.
Actually, are there other countries advancing in the field of smart grids, batteries, and electrical vehicles? And of course, what policies do they use and follow? Because I'm sure that Saudi Arabia, for example, is not the only one.
Definitely not. I mean, but all over the world, the thing is that electric vehicles, they develop very quickly and suddenly, and they're based on very well developed technologies and infrastructure, which have to be repurposed, obviously, because and developed very fast. One thing that a couple of years ago, when I went, that was my first visit to Beijing, and I was struck by how silent the city is. I was expecting this mega city to be unbelievably, impossibly noisy, but in fact it was silent. And when I looked around, and I realized that it's silent because every single 2 and 3 wheel vehicle was electric, not the big ones. It was not the Teslas that are driving the electric vehicles revolution. It was the motorcycles, the electric vehicles, the tricycles, all sorts of weird vehicles that probably will not pass all the regulations in some countries. But everything on 2 wheels were electric. And this is a huge critical mass that supports the move forward. And when we talk about electrification of transport and mobility, I mean, Bulgaria is one of the leading European countries in producing electric bicycles. And this is a very interesting phenomenon that has to be recognized, and we have to build on it in terms of knowledge, experience, economy, but of course also cases like Syncar, which couldn't connect properly. It would have been fantastic to hear more about that from them.
What was the main driver to become one of the leaders in the electrical bicycles, by your opinion?
I think to jump into it. I mean, obviously, bicycling is a very, very competitive thing. No, not just as a bicycling competition, but as industry, because it's on one hand it's a simple thing. So it's not like building a rocket where only few countries can compete. Any country can compete in that. On the other hand, the consumer's demand is very high. The consumer is very demanding. The consumers constantly want something new and something better, and this consumer pressure and consumer demand is a major driver for development. And I think that electric bicycles actually create much more sort of revolutionary wave than electric cars. I mean, if you look around streets of many large cities, Western cities mostly, you will see that now there are thousands purely electric bicycles, but also there are conventional bicycles that are equipped with converting kits. And this is very interesting in the whole world of logistics, because it transforms small deliveries, all this kind of small Amazon and not exactly Amazon, but various other companies that are delivering small goods, and also commuting. And with the pressure of air quality, all that is coming together into a huge wave of transformation in the mobility sector. And I think we're already seeing some kind of a gray area or merging between cars and bicycles and motorbikes. Something is happening there that is kind of entirely new, and mainly that the borders between these three categories of vehicles is starting to become a little bit blurred. It's a very interesting trend.
Talking about the electrical vehicles, we definitely should mention the chip shortage. Today we have chip shortage, but do you expect to have like battery shortage in the couple of years?
I think that battery shortage is unavoidable because it's a naturally development. So when we see today that the chip shortage, which by the way, not only the automotive industry is experiencing this shortage, but also companies and manufacturers like us are experiencing significant problems with material deliveries and especially chips. But for the batteries, it's another problem that I think it will be coming in the next years. First of all, because of the fact that the raw materials for the most commonly used batteries based on lithium are limited, and also not very easily accessible. So I think it's also political. The political side in the problem with the raw materials and the locations where the raw materials are taken, it's also has to be also considered. So I don't think that this could be completely forecasted for the next years. And yes, I think it will be another problem coming to mainly to the automotive industry, and the solution for this problem is definitely the development of new energy storage medias and new battery storage and batteries that can be used for automotive and electric vehicle applications.
I mean, Alexander is mentioning here something incredibly important, and it's the need for political leaders and governments and government advisors, probably mostly, to totally redefine the concept of what energy security is. Currently, we're thinking about energy security in terms of, are we getting enough oil from, do we have enough access to oil supplying countries, and is Russia going to turn the gas tap off? And this is so last century thinking about energy security, which is damaging very seriously the progress of new technologies. Because energy security, we have to abandon this old-fashioned view that energy security means a pipeline that will bypass Russian supplies of gas. I mean, this is so irrelevant, and this is pushed by many of our governments, by the European Commission, very much by the US government, which has quite sort of, I don't want to say inadequate policy about energy security, but not quite the right one. The energy security thinking has to focus very much on critical materials, on political burdens that give us the access to these critical materials, the diversification of sources, the research and development that can diversify the sources, the technologies, should also spread the supply chain, not allow one single country to have one part of the supply chain based entirely in this country, and then this country, whichever country that is, will start controlling, basically like Suez Canal is controlling massive supply chain, and if something sticks in the middle of Suez Canal, the whole world is in. So we have to think about all these cybersecurity, access to critical materials, and it's as Alexander said, it's not very easy. I mean, Afghanistan is one of the places where is the richest countries in the world in terms of all these materials. Is anybody going to rely on that? No, it's not going. And so we have to think, and governments have to completely redefine their view of what energy security is.
Talking about energy security, the European Union will phase out non-electric cars by 2035, I think. In this case, where we are as a country, what falls in Bulgaria, and another question that falls connected with that, especially with the battery market. Do you think that Europe can beat China in the electrical vehicles and battery production, and how?
I don't know exactly where we are. It's obvious that we don't have such a big penetration of electrical cars on the national market. But what I see for sure is that there will be a huge problem with the infrastructure for the electrical chargers for the e-vehicles from many aspects. So today we don't have enough. They are completely very little number of electrical chargers available on the streets, on the public streets. And the problem, even if we want to install and deploy more chargers, we will be with the capacity of the electrical grid, which we will not be able to support those electrical chargers. Especially on the highways, we speak about, but also in the cities, we speak about fast chargers, which are in the rates of 50 to 150 kilowatt and even more, what we see in Western Europe. So you can imagine if we consider in the next years to have 500,000 or 1 million electrical vehicles on the streets, and okay, they can not come simultaneously for charging, but for example, considering 500,000 vehicles charging at a fast charging station, this will require a capacity of 25 gigawatts, which is not available first as a generation capacity in Bulgaria. I don't think that any country at all is ready to face this challenge, but the solutions are two: whether to improve and increase the capacity of the electrical grid distribution network, which, as we said in the beginning, is almost mission impossible, or it will be extremely expensive. Or the second solution is, of course, to consider decentralized power generation and storage that can cover this local demand for the charging station of the electrical vehicles. This is something that we have to pay attention with the increased number of electrical vehicles nowadays. We don't have such a number that, and this problem is somehow not highlighted. So it would be interesting for me to hear also the opinion of Mr. Daskalov, if he's on the line, or Mr. Popov, especially for this problem with the generation capacity.
Mr.
Yes,
Daskalov.
hello.
Hello.
I'm sorry for the lag, but we here in Germany, and one of our laptops just stopped to work.
No problem.
So the problem in Bulgaria is very serious. Not only in Bulgaria, in the countries in Europe, they have similar problem with existing grid and with the charging systems they have to deploy on the highways, and especially in the city. You know, if we're talking for a structure in Bulgaria, in some of the city, let's say, buildings or blocks, like we say, there is living hundreds of families. So what will happen if 20% of them decide to have electric cars? So this is a real problem. And I was in the European Commission 2 years ago on the conference regarding similar problems. Germany, which is, let's say, one of the very wealthy and well-organized countries in the European Union, have a plan to modify his network, electrical network, next 30 years to be able to accept all the electric cars on the market. So that's mean that they need probably from now up to 20-25 years to do all these modifications, because for one fuel station, you know, is predicted to have current maximum current from 100 or 200 amps, and now just one car need this current to be charged. So that's why we decide, regarding our electrical car production, we decide to turn on the opposite way. We decide to make cars which at the moment are really possible to use effective with good effectiveness. I mean, you know that if there is no chargers enough on the highways and consumption of the electricity still is high on the high speed, so that means that we have to focus on the urban areas just inside in the city, where actually are the highest level of pollution, and we need to pay attention for the environment. So that's why our strategy is to charge the cars overnight. and the cars, because they have for utility use, will be charged on the facilities of the owner. I mean, if there's a logistics center which working, let's say, 12 or 16 hours per day, overnight the cars will be parked in front of the logistics center and the charging process will happen there. In case that the grid is not enough to charge, for example, more than 10, 20 cars, then the owner have possibility to install solar panels, or simply, if have not possibility for this, simply to deploy battery packs, which we offer also parallel with our electric car manufacturing. And collecting energy in the battery packs during the day through the solar energy, which will be absolutely free, wind energy if there is a possibility, or energy from the network in the last scenario. Then overnight he will be able to help to the grid to charge the cars, first of all, in the cheapest level of energy, electrical energy, and second, not disturbing the grid at all. So that's actually the only one way possible now, not only for Bulgaria, but also for other countries. You know that at the moment, the charging stations on the highway in the countries like Germany, Austria, and so on, there's simply one big box with batteries inside, because if there are 5 Teslas charging at one moment, the complete network will, will blow, you know.
This is very interesting issue, and it is, I hate using cliche words, but it's a system issue. And it's not about just whether we'll have more charging stations and that will solve the problem. We have to rethink the whole energy system. And as Mr. Daskolov said, this example about the highways that are charged through Tesla chargers, through batteries, rather than directly connected to the grid. And this is one area where governments have to think now, especially in Eastern Europe, where there is a rapid development of road infrastructure. Currently, road infrastructure is built in just the road, and we're thinking about the road and how many kilometers will have this road and which government will build more kilometers of the highway. But we're not thinking about the infrastructure of the future. So this road have to be designed in a way that will have the access to electricity, generation of electricity. When you build a motorway, you have to think where to position additional renewable energy sources, and the road itself has to be developed as an electricity network and infrastructure, as well as a road and car infrastructure. And the other thing is, obviously, when you have many electric cars, they start interacting with the system. They can be charged, but they can also discharge electricity in the system. And in that sense, we have to redesign our market and our regulations so that electric cars generation and should mix into a new type of interlinked system. So that's very important. And of course, this also affects the whole planning of our urban environment, because we have to start thinking very seriously about how we design and redesign our cities, and not just changing windows in order to be a little bit better insulated at home, but where to charge the car, for instance, and how to do that. This is very important. Otherwise, we'll be, in 10 years' time, we'll be stuck and we won't be able to move forward with that.
Thank you, Mr. Popov. Gentlemen, discussing the electrical vehicles and the smart grids, what is your opinion? Who will be dominating the electric car market in Europe in the near future? Maybe Mr. Deskolov can give more insights.
Thank you very much. If we look for the figures at the moment, how big companies, big automotive companies going straight to the electric cars, there will be no possibility for one name or one brand to be, let's say, alone or to dominate on the market, like you said. I think that the calculation between different car manufacturers probably will stay nearly the same or a little bit different than now, because everybody look for changing the strategy and to go for internal combustion engines to the electrical car manufacturers. But there is one big note, like we all know, the Elon Musk, our nice sample, he opened the box of Pandora years ago, and now there are not only we, like a small electric car vehicle manufacturer, there's a lot of companies which are doing this business already, trying to enter on different levels, especially for L7 homologation, where the regulations are much easy. There are a lot of samples in Europe, not just from now, from many years ago. We also have a sample in Bulgaria. And especially for the commercial vehicles and for the passenger transportation, like city buses and so on, there also will be a lot of new players on the market, because technology and system for electrical cars are much different and much easy than internal combustion engine cars, where you are limited to the engine with Euro 6.3, 0.4 homologation and special regulation for the emissions and so on. Here you just need electric motor, you need reductor, battery pack, which you can buy or you can assemble in your own, like we're doing. And then you need chassis, which normally you can buy like a part from different manufacturers, or you can manufacture in your own. So there will be significant change on the electrical truck markets and so-called passenger mobility and transportation for the city areas. For the cars which we know very well till now, like most famous brands, they also will be changed, because the new generation of young people, they don't care so much what is the upholstering inside the car, how much leather have, how much different things inside which make a nice car, or also probably the one thing which they care is the sound of the music. They care just to be able to have internet, to be able to drive the car easy and to go from point A to point B. And if they're able not to drive during this period, they will be more happy. So this change dramatically situation which market and which possibility for sell luxury cars, because we see now one new car costs more than 50,000 euro, and how much from the young generation can afford these cars. So that's why I think that also in this area for electric cars will come new players with like Tesla, but much simple solutions with less kilometers range just for city driving, something like a share cab system, which the cars can be shared and you can go from point A to point B easily, especially when autonomous driving is already in regarding the European regulation and laws, which still are under preparation for this business.
Okay.
I mean, about the who will win this competition, I very much agree that we're facing a much more different field than the sort of the classical competition between German, French, Italian, and American cars, and that there is a possibility, opportunities for many more players, and probably for players that even don't have any idea that they can be major players in the electrification of mobility. We have to think about electrification of mobility rather than producing the best car. And if we look around, we might see some quite surprising things. So, for example, Sofia is more than 50% of public transport is electrified, the journeys. Bulgarian cities, most Bulgarian cities could set targets for 100% electrification of public transport, taxis, and delivery transport by 2030, 2025 even, or whatever, very soon. And this is a huge opportunity. Then we have to think about all the other forms of mobilities. And probably in that field, there will be huge innovation in the whole delivery, autonomous vehicles, the mixture between them, even things like wheelchairs. I mean, we don't see disabled people around because Sofia and Bulgaria is not designed for disabled people to move around. But there are at least 250,000, I think, who need this type of mobility. This is a huge area of for enterprise and for personal freedom that is pushing and will kind of appear very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Popov. Actually, we have a question from the online stream. Due to the fact of the increased number of electrical cars, are we going to experience problems with the lack of electrical power?
We shouldn't worry too much about that. Short answer. But Alexander, I'm sure, can say something on that.
Well, yeah, in my point of view, I can see this in a few cities in Western countries, and it's all about the fast chargers. Because the lifestyle in the Western countries is related to everyday driving on long distances. When you drive every day on a long distance, in the same time in the Western countries, the penetration and the number of electrical cars, it's much higher, even reaching 50% and more of the total car numbers. Then it naturally makes the fast charging on the highway on a daily basis higher. So the big number of electrical cars that can come to a charging station simultaneously at certain point of time, and if there is no local storage considered that can support this charging and not only taking the energy from the grid, then it comes to shortages, to power outages, and to overloading from the public grid. The problem is serious, and yeah, even although they have strong grid infrastructure with high capacity, they are facing this problem. So I can only imagine what could happen in Bulgaria, where also we have the additional problem on top that the grid infrastructure is not modernized, that as Christian said in the beginning.
Okay, in the last 5 minutes of our panel, Mr. Arangelov, do you think that, do you expect the trend for more and more Bulgarian factories to build their electricity production capacity to continue because of the high price?
Yes, it makes sense. It is already commercially viable, and it will become much more attractive in the near future.
Okay. Mr. Popov, is the 2050 renewable energy target achievable?
Yes, absolutely. But it's not only about renewable energy. Again, we have to think about it as a system. It's renewable energy, it's storage, but the whole field of power demand is very important. I was talking about redefining the concept of energy security. Energy security is not about energy supply, it's about many things. And energy demand, energy use, how we use and how we manage demand is a massive part of energy strategy. And we include here smart grids, smart management of buildings, of industry, batteries, but also insulation, building insulation, which has attracted so negative attention in Bulgaria. Is absolutely essential. And when we talk about energy storage, well-insulated building is one of the best energy storage devices out there. So we have to think about the whole system. And yes, not 2050, I would say 2040 will be, we can see even, we have to open our minds a little bit, and 2040 we can see nearly zero carbon energy picture.
Thank you. Meanwhile, we have a question from the online stream, but while I'm receiving it from the team, Mr. Daskalov, Mr. Rangerov, does Bulgaria have any success stories back in the days in the field of batteries, smart grids, and etc.? Are you familiar with?
If you want to say something from my side, I can tell you that we worked last 3 years on the development of our electric vehicles, and regarding that also we develop our own battery pack. So that means that we're buying like all the rest cells from Far East, because they're available only there, from top 3 manufacturer in the world. And we assemble our battery packs in Bulgaria, in Ruse, in our own. So assembly battery pack for the car, or assembly battery pack for light commercial vehicles, or let's say city transportation vehicle, passenger, or doesn't matter, is absolutely the same. So we also have technology to make energy stations from these battery packs. First of all, from new batteries. Now, if somebody needs this kind of energy station, we are ready to manufacture in Bulgaria, I underline, right now. So if there is a problem and company decides to work with electrical cars and the grid is not okay, or the company want to combine with solar energy, which is most effective way, like we also using solar panels in our electrical utility vehicles, then we can support with whole, let's say, hardware solutions in very affordable price, underline again, because there is a lot of companies selling grid solutions, or let's say energy stations, but the price is still very high from one side, and from other side, we are ready to go forward. And in case that our vehicles in the future are used more than 10 years for our kind of battery cells, the LiT phosphate polymer, after 10 years or 2000 cycles, they're going up to 70% capacity. So we plan regarding new, let's say, circular economy and all these problems with recycling of lithium batteries, we plan to use them for energy storage. and to sell for second generation used cells for energy storages, where the price will go down up to 50%, because they are already too heavy for the vehicles, but they're not a problem to be stored on the, let's say, backyard or on the basement on your house. And then you can use up to more 25, 30 years these battery cells, because the cells we are using, they're on the market from nearly more than 15, 17 years. They're very reliable. We already have a history. They're not last out of date or was, let's say, scream for the regarding power and energy and weight. But we have all the statistics and all the knowledge what happening the last 15 years on them used. So that's why we are very sure that with this kind of cells which we use, for the future, there will be no problem to be used for improving the grid and make energy storages on the lower price. Regarding other car manufacturers, this could be the same. Already Skoda, I read it, have this this program to use used batteries from them electric cars to make energy storages, and for sure all the rest will follow.
Thank you. And the following question from our online stream. How do you think the problem of the shortage of charging stations in the center of big cities should be solved? For example, in Sofia.
Oh, this is a difficult question, because nobody planned network on the city when this happened. When the city was built for electric car use. But there are solutions. I mean, there are a lot of consumers which using energy during the day a lot, and overnight they're not used. So regarding the grid, let's say, plan or grid situation at the moment, the government or the company provides the energy transportation can calculate where can be made parking with access to the charging stations. So it's not so easy, of course. We cannot expect that you will be able to charge your car in front of your block during the night, because if there are 1, 2, or 3 cars, this could be possible. But if there are, like we discussed before, 20-30% from the citizens in this building using electric cars, this will be not possible. One very simple solution is when you see the plan of the grid, and when you see that there is, for example, factory or very big shopping mall which working during the day and consuming thousands of watts of energy. During the night, for example, the mall centers, the parkings are free. There is nobody there. But there is a huge potential from electricity already regarding the grid. So if there is installation from hundreds, let's say, charging station on the parking of the mall, this is one very easy solution. So probably the citizens which living around this place will be not so comfortable and then need to walk 5, 10 or 15 minutes. But this is very good for our health. So that's one of the solutions which I think it's very easy, in which if we start to, let's say, to estimate and think, not only mall centers, there's a lot of places, other places which there is a hub for a huge, let's say, energy consumption during the day. During the night, this energy is free, so we can consider how we can use that. I'm very against fast charging, and I'm very against the policy of with the batteries existing on the market. If there are new batteries available in the future which allow fast charging, okay. But for the moment, I think in our technology and our concept is based on overnight charging. First of all, cheap energy. Second, we are, let's say, saving a lot of CO2, because during the night this energy is not used normally. And third, the battery life cycles go very quickly down if we charging with fast chargers, existing lithium-ion batteries on the market. So like you see, there are a few options if we consider now First of all, there will be profit for available owners of this, let's say, point of existing energy regarding the grid during the night. Because if they install charging stations, one charging station probably will cost very soon less than 1,000 leva, and they used to the people who charge the cars used to pay something. So during the night, these parkings will be used, and then will be profitable for both sides, for the business and for the end consumers.
Thank you very much for your answer, gentlemen. Thank you for joining in this panel and giving such a insights for so difficult topic to discuss. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We'll be back in the next 5 minutes. Our next session will be how to make your factory a smart factory, and how Schneider Electric can help you do that. Next session will be in Bulgarian, so expect us in the next 5 minutes. See you soon.